Hey everybody, how's it going? It's Russell Matthews here, and everybody knows that in Toronto's major markets, the house prices are getting a little bit crazy. In the biggest cities of Toronto and Vancouver, along with many other smaller towns, we've seen year-over-year increases for over a decade now. As a result, more and more people are being pushed out of the housing market, and the people who actually can afford a place are buying smaller and smaller homes. And the government of Canada has recognized this, and it sounds like it's a problem that they're trying to solve. In other parts of the world, and Japan definitely sticks out from this, you see people living in super small areas because of the housing prices and how much land costs to build on these days.
At Tomoyuki Utsumi's 250 square foot unit, the countertops fold out, the steps double as a sofa. The bathtub is part of the living room.
But is cramming people into smaller and smaller spaces really the solution for our housing crisis? It seems like the government of Canada, along with some other provinces, really think so. They've greenlit billions of dollars of funding, much of which is going to rapid housing, which is building these small little units for more and more people to go in to try to solve the problem. And the first development of these modular homes is going up in Toronto right now. So in this video, we're going to take a look at this project, what these units look like, and we're going to talk a little bit about if it's actually feasible for people to live in, and if it could be a good solution. But before we dive in, if you're new to the channel, hey, how's it going? It's nice to meet you. My name's Russell, and on this channel, I post videos about Canadians and their money. Anytime anything significant happens in terms of news or new government policies or any updates like this that affect you and your family's money, you're going to hear about it here first. The overall goal is to help get information to Canadians as quickly and accurately as possible, so that they can set themselves up to live a more wealthy future. So if that sounds like something you'd be interested in, and who doesn't want to be more wealthy in the future, then you're going to want to hit those buttons down there, subscribe, and the notification bell. And make sure to hit that like button, because one click of that button spreads this video like wildfire to people who could be looking for this information. Thanks so much for doing that. Now let's take a look at the press conference that was had yesterday about this housing development in Toronto that could be spread across the rest of the country.
Current events during the COVID-19 pandemic have reminded us of the importance of having a place to call home. Canadians, as they've been fighting the spread of COVID-19 pandemic, have used their homes as the place of refuge and a place to secure themselves from this terrible virus.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. There's no doubt that this virus and this pandemic has been hard on everybody in some sort of way, but it's really been hard on the people that have unstable housing situations. People who are either in a stable renting situation or they own a home for themselves. I mean, it's been a lot easier for those people, although you do have to pay your mortgage, pay rent. It's tough that way. But could you imagine going through this without some sort of idea of where you're going to live or where you're going to rest your head at night? This is kind of pointing towards why housing is such a big deal when it comes to COVID, and how it sort of pushed the problem forward and more into the forefront even than it was before, when these problems were going on even before all of this happened.
In these challenging times, our government has acted very quickly to ensure that this place called home is protected. We immediately mobilized to put more money in the pockets of Canadian families so that they can pay their rent, and we deferred mortgages. We also increased the Canada Child Benefit, and we introduced programs like the Canada Emergency Response Benefit to ensure that Canadians can replace their lost employment income due to the pandemic.
That was pretty huge.
To have partnered with the City of Toronto to help build these modular homes in the City of Toronto. Modular homes are fast and they're cost effective. In these trying times, they're one of the best solutions for building affordable housing for those in need.
So it sounds like their main plan is to build affordable housing via modular homes. When they say modular, they essentially mean that it can sort of fit together in many different ways. So I'm assuming that they build the units individually and they kind of just stack them or like spread them out depending on where this permanent modular housing is being built. It's kind of like building one floor of a Lego house and then taking the other floor and just stacking it on top, and you can do that over and over again, or do it laterally as well. So this could be a good idea to quickly build homes, because that's the kicker, right? Like, we can put as much money into development as we want, but if it doesn't solve any problems until 10 years down the line, what are we going to do in the meantime?
Through the Affordable Housing Innovation Fund, our government, the Government of Canada, has provided $8.25 million to bring this initial phase of modular housing to the City of Toronto. With these modular housing units, more people will be housed comfortably and affordably. More rapid housing is needed, such as this one. And
Okay,
there is more
so they say they're going to be housed comfortably and affordably. So what does that mean? I'm assuming that this is going to be sort of aimed at low-income families and giving them a place to live. So I can't imagine this being some sort of luxurious condominium downtown. I just did a little bit of research and I found the company that actually makes these modular units, and they're based in Grimsby, Ontario, which is funny because I just helped a client buy a home out that way. Apparently the company who's contracted to do this is called NRB Inc. And on their website, it says that most of their units are 250 to 300 square feet. So it looks like we're talking about the size of roughly a bachelor apartment. Maybe there's like a little bit of a living area, like a kitchen in the same room, and that's where your bed is as well, with one washroom. I just went to their website, and this is one of their previous projects. So I guess it looks something like this, and each one of these is like a modular unit that can be stacked on top of one another. But when we scroll down here, you can kind of see what it looks like inside. Yeah, so there's the side again, but yeah, we have a little space for a bed, a little kitchenette here. So yeah, it's not too bad. I'll show you the other one too. Here's another one of their residential projects. When I scroll down here, you can kind of see more pictures of what it looks like. And apparently it all comes fully furnished. So the bed is attached to the building, and so is the kitchen, and all of the stuff that is in here furniture-wise is built into the building so that they can truly be built super quickly, right? You can just stack them on top of each other, build the hallways, and everybody can go in, and it's all ready super quickly. Okay, so that clears things up a little bit about the size of these units, and it's definitely not to the level that they are in Japan. It blows my mind how confined a space that some people can live in and do live in. And I could see our major cities in Canada going this way. That being said, Canada, in terms of their land, is a lot bigger than Japan or these other places where they're having these problems. In Japan, there's literally nowhere to build except for up in a lot of these areas. Whereas in Toronto and Vancouver and some other larger cities, we do have a little bit of more space to sort of sprawl out from the city. Let's check out the rest of this press conference and see what they say.
In September, 2 days before the throne speech, we announced a $1 billion rapid housing initiative that will cover the construction of modular housing, as well as allow municipalities like the City of Toronto to acquire properties and convert them quickly into housing and house the most vulnerable in our communities.
That's across all of
Canada. And create
Canada.
over 3,000 affordable housing units across the country. We've been working very
3,000.
closely with municipalities like the City of Toronto and the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, as well as Indigenous government bodies and nonprofits, to get this funding into the hands of those who need it as quickly as possible so that we can address this need. And the Rapid Housing Initiative is part of the National Housing Strategy, a 10-year, $55 billion strategy to ensure that each and every Canadian can call their home affordable and safe.
Okay. So I guess the idea is that they've got this 10-year plan, but this is kind of just like the short-term solution. And I'm curious how COVID changes all of this, right? Like, they've made this plan before COVID happened, and now there's more and more people who are struggling to find housing. So maybe they shift focus on these modular homes, because really, like, building homes 10 years down the line doesn't do much for Canadians that are struggling now. And with the amount of immigration we see into Canada and the population growth that we're seeing, I worry that the housing market may not be able to keep up. I mean, that's why we're seeing these huge price increases in a lot of cases. There's more people that want to buy homes than there are homes, right? It's basic supply and demand. It'll be interesting to see over the coming years if they're actually able to keep up with this sort of pace.
We need rapid housing now, and the Government of Canada will deliver on this promise. Stay tuned.
This is a very significant
Okay, now it's
milestone
Mayor John
in
Tory.
the development of rapid housing, as the minister said. We simply had to come up with ways in which we could produce affordable housing and supportive housing faster. Because oftentimes, even when you have a piece of land the city has like this one, it can be the case that it takes 2 or 3 years for it actually to get built and for people to live in it.
This is exactly what I'm talking about, right? They need to have a solution that's not years, but months to build houses. And maybe modular homes is the answer. Let's see what else he has to say.
This project is moving fast because it has to move fast, because the need for affordable and supportive housing is urgent. This is one of 2 sites that make up Phase 1, which will deliver 100 units of housing ready for occupancy by the end of the year. That will mean the elapsed time from the approval of the site, the purchase of the modular units, and the plans will in total be a few months, not a few years.
Wow, yeah,
In about
exactly,
a month,
exactly. That's amazing. If they can bring these development times down to only a few months, then think of how many more projects they can do once they scale this up. But if they end up scaling this like on a national level, I'm wondering how they're going to decide who's going to get this housing and how they pay for it and how that's going to work. I'm guessing it's not freehold or where you buy it and you own it outright. Is this going to be like cheap rentals or what? And like who's making money off of that?
That is a very important fact to note. The operation and management of this modular housing development will be turned over to an expert nonprofit housing organization.
Nonprofit,
Phase 2
okay.
coming along
That's
very
interesting.
shortly in 20.
It's like you read my mind. Or it's like I watched a little bit ahead of the video. Sorry, guys. So it's handled by a nonprofit. That's a big point, right? It's not going to be some big condo developer building it up and trying to make a huge amount of profit, right? It's going to be these, maybe this plant out in Grimsby that's contracted to build it initially. They're going to be making a commercial profit. But once it comes down to the actual running of the facility, then it's going to be in the hands of a nonprofit. That should be the thing that keeps the rents down if this is actually going to be a rental. They haven't really talked about if this is something you can buy or if it's a rental solution, but I'm guessing it's a rental.
We'll see an additional 150 homes built and ready for occupancy in 2021, not some year down the road, in 2021.
It's pretty
And
quick.
This just isn't a temporary home for people to call home and to live in. These are homes for people to grow in and to live comfortably and to become a part of this neighborhood. And I see some of the neighbors are out, attending our event today, and I just know that these people are going to feel welcome in this neighborhood and that they in turn are going to be good neighbors. We're going to be good neighbors because that's something that's very important to us.
So that does it for that press conference video, but it does bring up a lot of interesting points and ideas for how we could potentially solve Canada's housing problems. But it does bring up a lot of questions in my mind. Like, is it really the right idea to build smaller and smaller housing inside the big cities? Or should we more incentivize people to move out of the cities and develop the land and inhabit the land that's so bountiful in Canada, right? Like, there's so much land in Canada. Why don't we try to spread people across that land instead of having everybody confined into one place? But I recognize that's kind of simplifying things. There are a lot of other factors that drive people to live in cities and a lot of people who need to live in cities. So I'm glad that there is a solution in the short term that can handle this, but I really just don't see the Canadian government being able to fund enough housing to keep up with the demand of housing. I'm in the extremely fortunate position where I've been actually able to afford a house, and that's largely due to the strategy that I use called house hacking that I've talked about a lot on the channel, where it's allowed me to afford the property where I may otherwise not have been able to. But so many of my friends and so many people that I've talked to who are young adults like myself just are so discouraged about their housing prospects for the future. And I've tried to share with them the strategies that I've used to be able to actually do it, but there's a lot of people that just are sort of having this negative sentiment about the housing, and that's a pretty hard hurdle to get over to actually believe that you could one day own a home. And so with this one, I'm really curious about what you think. Do you think it's the right idea to build smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller homes in order to increase the affordability for people to actually get into some sort of house? Or do you think it's the wrong way to go and people shouldn't be sort of forced into small spaces and living like this for the rest of their lives? So let me know down in the comments, good idea or bad idea? And while you're down there, make sure to hit the like button and turn it blue, because one click of that button spreads this video to people who could be looking for this information. And with all of that said, thank you so much for watching, everybody. I really hope this video has helped you out a little bit, or maybe at least made you think about solutions to this major problem that we're facing in Canada. But yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.